think of branding like an iceberg. Okay, like brand is an iceberg, right? What you've mentioned, which is the logo, the color, the font, the website, the UI, the UX, all of that stuff, that is all the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Because that is what we see. Like, what is your brand story, right? What is the origination story? What is the founder story? Why does your brand exist? How is your brand changing the lives of others? Are you doing something more than just selling a product, right? What is it that really makes you different? When I think of aspirational brands, I think of like a Rolls Royce, a Cartier, a Rolex.
Absolutely.
Those are those luxury brands, aspirational brands.
Hi Vashi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
How do you feel coming back to Collative once again for a podcast that we have been planning for such a long time? I think it's been more than 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, it has. I think Collative has such a warm vibe whenever you come in, and always greeted by warm people like you and everyone at the reception. Every time I've come here, I've just had such a wholesome time, and I've never had a bad experience here.
Yeah. So tell me, look, before we start the podcast, before we get into the branding aspect of it, I want you to tell us about what has been your journey in the startup ecosystem, particularly in Delhi NCR and in India, because what I have seen that you are part of every event, you're part of every community, you are known to every person who's in the startup ecosystem, who has spent some time in the startup ecosystem here. How does it happen? What has been your journey? When did you start? How did it work? Like, if I want to become something 10% of you, how can I do that?
Yeah. I think it all starts with basically just getting out of your comfort zone more regularly. So I moved to India in 2018, and I just finished my undergraduate degree. I did a degree in marketing and management from Northeastern University in Boston. And I moved here to stay with my nanny, and I have never lived here, so I had no friends. I literally knew nobody over here. So I moved here, and I think Saurabh was one of the first few people that I met. And he told me that you really have to step out of your comfort zone if you want to make a name, because in India there are too many people fighting for the same opportunities, and there's just too much of competition, and if you want to stand out, you have to do it yourself. So I was like, okay, how do I do it? And so he was like, go on LinkedIn, try and talk to people, learn from their experience, ask questions, have casual coffee chats, whatever works for you. And I said, ठीक है, done. So I started off with what I knew best. I went to LinkedIn and I was like, I'll find alumni from my college that is in Delhi NCR. So I did that, and my first job was actually from an alumni from my college in Boston, where I got my first job, and I was handling community and events. And so I started over there, and that was like kind of my lift off. And I was like, okay, at least I have now 3 friends. I can count 3 friends on my fingers. I'm like, I have 3 friends. Okay, good. Now we need to make that 6. So I started going on LinkedIn every day and just reaching out to people with the same story. I still remember, I used to think it was such a sad story, but it was literally like, hi, I've just moved to India and I know nobody. I'm looking for cool people to connect with and chat with, and would love to have a chat with you and learn from you and your experiences. And that's it. I had no ask. My only ask was like, can we chat? Can I learn about you? I would want to know, what do you do? How have you done this? And I think over time, like initially there was that reaction of like, why am I doing this? What will people think of me? Am I doing the right thing? But then over time, you also realize that people are so nice. Like, nobody said no to me. So I was like, ye to sahi hai. And so I started meeting people. Like I said, Saurabh was one of the first few that I met. And then it just kept kind of snowballing. And I think now that I've been in the ecosystem for so long, I genuinely make an attempt to go to every event that I can, because it's not about me trying to be like, oh, I'm here, like I'm the center of attention, but more like I want to keep my feet on the ground and see what is really happening in the ecosystem and meet new people, see the kind of companies coming up. And I honestly go to every event and I say the same thing, that like, I'm going to an event not to have business or make business connections. I'm going there to make friends. And I said this multiple times at Startup Mahakumbh as well. And 2-3 people were like, but yahan pe sab business karne aaye. And I'm like, that's the problem.
Right.
Nobody's really talking to people as people. Everybody's like, what do you do? What's your revenue? How can I help you? Do you need this? Do you need that? Can I sell you this? That's not how business works. That's
Right.
like the totally wrong way of doing business. I've always believed that friends and, becoming friends with someone is really the true essence of doing business together, because if you're friends, during the good times, you'll have a good time, and during the bad times, you will be able to sort it out. And I think that is the core of my business ethos. And all of my clients have come through friends, through referrals, through people talking about me. I don't do any cold pitching. I don't reach out to people on LinkedIn and say, hi, I run a branding studio. Do you need your branding? I don't believe in the ideology of shitting on founders either. That, oh, I went to your website. Your website sucks. Like, we need to redo it.
Absolutely.
Like, founders know what they're doing, right? They just want help, support, trustable people that they can go to when they're stuck with something, and someone who they can genuinely trust, right? And that trust is something that is not going to get built overnight. It's going to take
Absolutely.
time to do. But if it is done right, what happens is you actually made genuine connections, and that is really where business then stems from. Because
Correct.
I think the more you're seen around in the ecosystem, the more number of people know you, the more number of people talk about you. You don't need to talk about yourself. And that's something that I truly believe in. And I debate with myself all the time that I'm not talking about myself. I'm not talking about my projects. I'm not talking about how much great work I've done. I'm not talking about this client that's raised funding of mine, right? I don't talk about anything. And you must have read my LinkedIn. I very rarely talk about my clients. I was like, if somebody really wants to work with me, they will reach out to me, they'll get to know me, they'll ask me for a portfolio, and that's a conversation between me and them.
Correct.
I don't need to boast to the world that I've done these many projects with these many clients. Not my cup of tea. I'm a very silent seller. I'm just like, listen, I'm your friend. If you need help with anything brand, comms, strategy, visual design, I'm here for you. I'm one call away.
Right.
Then after that, even price becomes something that people don't really double think about. Like, I've noticed with people that I've worked with, because there's so much inherent trust, even if I say like some crazy number, they'll maybe negotiate a little bit, but not a hard negotiation.
Absolutely.
Versus a stranger who's reached out to me, or a stranger that's reached out on LinkedIn who doesn't know me, right? Those are the people who are going to be harder to work with. So I think as a business ethos at TFL itself, I've intentionally built it around the concept of I'm a founder's best friend. Founder needs help. I'm here to help. That's it. That's the core ethos.
Interesting. So, from the last answer, I have three more things to ask you. One, firstly, I want you to tell us a little about the Fingerprint Labs. First, secondly, you were the LinkedIn top voice in the year 2020,
2021.
2021, right? Second is that how did you become that? What steps did you follow, or were you planning to become a LinkedIn top voice, or it just happened because you were posting a lot of content over there? You organically gained so much audience. And thirdly, I have forgotten what was it. But let's start with the two questions only.
Yeah. So the first part is, tell me about TFL. The Fingerprint Labs is a brand strategy studio that works with challenger brands and the founders to help them to build, create, and scale their brand. We are heavily brand focused. We focused on everything that is about building customer trust, loyalty, and advocacy. We are very straightforward in our approach. We know what we do best and we stick to that. And we've done over 150 projects. We've worked with like the Bajaj, we've worked with Axel, Jupiter Money, Tots and Bubbles, so we've done a whole landscape of things. And I'm very, very proud of the team. It's not just my effort. I was probably the one who started the company, but it wouldn't have been where it is without the team. That being said, I think branding is also something very close to my heart. It's something that I truly enjoy talking about because it's something that I spent a lot of time learning. It's something that I'm genuinely interested in. I read up a lot about, and I think for me, if there is passion and alignment with what you're doing, to be able to monetize or make money, I think that's really where the beauty comes about because it's not just a
Absolutely.
business. You don't wake up every day with a thing on your head saying, I have to make so much money today. It's more like, have I picked up a project that I'm truly passionate about, that I can do good work for?
Hmm.
So that has been the ethos at TFL. Your second question, which was about LinkedIn's top voice, back in the day, unlike today where LinkedIn is giving out this top voice like candy,
Hmm.
back in the day it was a very coveted program where there were, I think, about 20-25 of us picked from all over India, and we were. It was called LinkedIn's Top Voice Next Gen Leaders or something like that, and there were literally 20-25 of us. It was just a by invitation program, and 2020 ish, like around that time from 2018 till 2020, I was very active on LinkedIn because I had no friends. I constantly was afraid, like I have no friends, like I need to keep posting people, I need to keep connecting with people. So like my in the back of my head was like, okay, I need to keep posting so I meet new people, talk to new people, get invited to events. So I think it was just an invite only, and Ankit, who was in the editorial team, he reached out to me and said that you've been nominated, this, that. And my first question to him was, what did I do? And I was like, how did this happen? And he was just like, it's an invite only program. You've been posting and you've been like engaging with the community. And I was like, that's really sweet of you. And so I was one of the OG top voices before it became like something that now everybody has. So that's how that came about. I remember particularly during COVID, I think one thing that really struck me during COVID was how distant we were, but still how close we were.
Right.
And how social media became a place of solace, a place of comfort, a place of like, something to get your mind away, because every single person I know was dealing with something COVID in their family.
Absolutely.
And people would come to social media, and at that time, even Clubhouse, to just get their mind off what was happening in the real world.
Right.
And that was when I started creating video, and I did a lot of video content in around 2020 when COVID had just started. I used to do this chat show called Marketing Rapid Fire, which was like a quiz show with 5 people where they get 30 seconds to answer a question about a topic that concerned all of them. So I was doing a lot of stuff where I was also trying to engage people and just kind of help people to learn, use their time productively. COVID was a very steep learning curve because there was suddenly like nowhere to go. And so I spent a lot of time reading, I spent a lot of time talking to people. And I think that's really where the algorithm kind of picked it up, that this girl is really trying. Like, we should notice her. She's really trying. She's putting up so many videos and content. Like, kuch to kar rahi hai ladki. Let's acknowledge her. And so that's how it came about.
So why did you choose LinkedIn? Because at that time, maybe it's just me, but a lot of people were focusing more on Instagram and TikTok. I think TikTok was very booming at that time before it got banned eventually in India. But TikTok, and why not Instagram and TikTok, and why only LinkedIn?
So for me, I think first thing was I figured that if I connected with alumni, they would at least have something common to talk about.
Right.
Because we studied at the same college. So, LinkedIn is very friendly to kind of connecting with people and filtrations and all of that. Instagram, TikTok doesn't have that. Also, a lot of people's profiles on Instagram are personal. And at the same time, also, like, it would be really weird to be like, on Instagram. I don't know, LinkedIn just happened to be like a comfort zone. So I was
Right.
like, let me try LinkedIn. That being said, like, I've invested a lot of time on LinkedIn. Like, if you see my screen time, like the highest bar on it is always LinkedIn. I had to actually set a timer on my phone for 2 hours per day because I was spending more than 2 hours per day on LinkedIn. So now my phone reminds me if I've spent more than 2 hours. And it's very regular. Like very regularly I get the notification and I'm like, shit. But I think LinkedIn was just that place where I could go and find alumni easier. Then from alumni, start going to and talking to founders. And I mean, even my first job, right? I didn't even go there for a job. I went there to meet him for coffee. And I was like, you've started at the same college. You're 2 batches senior than me. Let's just catch up for coffee. I'm new here. Same story, same sob story. And he was like, by the way, I'm hiring for community and events. Do you want to join? And I'm like, yeah.
Why not?
Why not? I was like, I just came. I'm like, sure. So I think I came here in March or April. In May, I started working. And like there was no like rigorous interview process or anything because like we shared a common background. He's from my university. He went through my LinkedIn, sent him a resume for formality. But it was again like I said, like if everything begins on the foundation of friendship and understanding, so many things get easier. And that's how I got my first job. Then I got my second job also via LinkedIn because I was first in community and events. Then I suddenly picked up an interest for design, like UI, UX, and understanding how interfaces are designed. So I started reading up a lot about that. And so I was like, let me try and jump into a design agency to understand the other side of it. Because I knew copywriting, I knew how to like make websites look good from a content perspective, but I didn't really understand the design perspective. So I was like, that skill could be useful to me. So I jumped into a design agency. Then from there, I jumped into a fintech. And all of them were either through LinkedIn or through friends. Because the last one, I met a friend, again, same story. I went to her, met her, I was like, we became really good friends. And then she was like, by the way, there's this company that's hiring. I've been working with them a little bit here and there. Really nice guys. Would you like to join? And I was like, sure. So I did that because I was looking for a switch because I like design, but being in a design agency, it was a world apart. Right. It was like designers talking to marketing people and like I was just like, I don't get their wavelength, they don't get my wavelength. It's okay, I just wanted to do it for experience, and it was a great experience. Can't complain. So then I shifted into a fintech company, and from there then I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm done, now I need to start on my own. And that's really how the whole freelancing thing started. Then a solopreneur, then agency owner. Now I don't even know what I am. I'm somewhere between agency owner and business owner, helper, enabler, ecosystem, something, all these fancy hashtags and God knows what else that gets added. But yeah, that's basically how it all happened.
You mentioned about branding and like your interaction with the marketing. Now we come to the core question. First, I want to understand what exactly is a brand, what is branding, and what is the difference between branding, marketing, and advertisements, because for a layman all of these three things are together. Like people do not understand what is the differentiating factor between marketing a product, branding a product, and creating advertisements for that product. So a lot of companies also do that. They have this one person, they call them the marketing chief of marketing anyway, and they take all the inputs from that person only. Ki chalo theek hai, you suggest me the color palette, you suggest me the logo, you suggest me the tagline, then you spend money on Facebook and LinkedIn for that product, then you create the content around it, you create graphics around it. So see, again, there's no differentiating factor. I want to understand from you that what is the differentiating factor between the three.
Got it.
And before that, what exactly is a brand?
Got it. Let's go into a little bit of theory. Let me know if it's getting very complicated, but I'll try and simplify it as much as I can. Think of branding like an iceberg. Okay? Like brand is an iceberg, right? What you mentioned, which is the logo, the color, the font, the website, the UI, the UX, all of that stuff, that is all the tip of the iceberg. Right. Because that is what we see. Right. But under that, there are many, many layers to defining what really is your brand. Right. To me, after all of these years, I've started to believe more and more that branding is all about the emotion that you're able to derive from your audience in order to make them choose you enough to make a purchase. Right. If I had to put it very simply, it is this. Branding is not just about doing everything, it's about doing everything right. So when we get into branding, for example, like what we do at TFL, we start off with the core of why did you begin your business? What is it? What is the reason? What is the change you want to make in the world? Right? Unless those fundamentals are not strong, your brand will not be rooted in anything that is meaningful to the audience. So we first of all start with what is your idea? Why did you start? How did you begin? What is it that you're doing differently? Now, there are obviously technical terms to what I'm explaining to you right now. So like, for example, when I say what is your difference, where do you see yourself in the market? There we're talking about your positioning statement, your unique value propositions, your reasons to believe, right? Then it comes even deeper because it's more about, for example, then the next step after that, what we do is figure out what does your brand sound like if it was a person.
Oh.
So when you figure out, so for example, like you think of a Zomato brand, you think of a Dove brand, you think of a Nike brand, each of them you can characterize as a person. You can imagine a person standing in front of you.
Right.
Like Nike would be somebody who's like a motivational speaker, somebody who's very short, very crisp, very action oriented. Ki abhi karna and you have to do it.
Yes.
You know, it's almost like that Chak De India wala speech, remember, that he gives in the locker
70
room?
minute hai aapke
Like
paas.
that sort of a person would be a Nike person. A Dove person would be someone who's a little soft, who's like, you're beautiful the way you are.
Correct.
You know, you are the way you are. Just accept the way you are. Life goes on. Somebody who's very modest, very down to earth, very humble. So when you think of brands, right, what we do is we try and humanize the brand by giving it human characteristics.
Okay.
So one of the questions that we ask founders is, if your brand was a person, what would you like your brand to sound like? And we've gotten answers like that are just so funny sometimes, but I
Give
get
me an
it.
example, no, please.
We've gotten Charlie Chaplin, and I'm like, why do you want to sound like Charlie Chaplin? He was like, I just want to be a fun brand. And I'm like, okay, Charlie Chaplin is fun, but not exactly what you want for your brand.
Absolutely.
So when you ask a founder, right, they'll obviously go to the closest figure that they know. So we've gotten Charlie Chaplin, we've gotten Virat, we've gotten Russell Peters, we've gotten like all sort of answers. So we basically try and humanize the brand and try and make it sound like a person, so that when the brand is talking to a Harsh, for example, Harsh feels like a friend is talking to them. Right? It's not that the brand has to push the product down your throat. The brand has to want to make you buy that product by telling you why they are better than the 100 others.
Right.
So that is honestly by aligning yourself to your consumer's mindset, speaking the way that they do, living a day in their life, right? So that is the voice, tone, messaging part. Then after that comes the communication and the storytelling. What is your brand story, right? What is the origination story? What is the founder story? Why does your brand exist? How is your brand changing the lives of others? Are you doing something more than just selling a product, right? What is it that really makes you different? So that all comes in the brand story. Then after that, we move into the visual design part.
Yeah, I want to cut you here, but because I have a doubt. So we see a lot of brands where, let's take the new startups, let's take Mama's example, let's take Zero Da's example. We know the story of their origins, but let's take example of Nike, let's take example of Dove. We do not, like, the origin story is not very common in the market. Like, people, most of the people are not aware about them. So how is that differentiation being done there? Because I still have a trust factor with Dove and Nike, and I have the same trust factor with Mamaearth and Zero Da. The origin story, the storytelling is not there. Like, as a layman, I am not able to see it. I'm sure there is something in the back of my mind which is making me choose that product. But like, how are you able to see it, and why not other people are able to see that?
So if you had to think of a Mamaearth versus a Nike versus a Dove versus any Indian startup brand, say take Go Desi for example,
Right.
or Go Zero, right? Every brand has to do two things. One is build mental availability, and second is build physical availability.
Right.
Now, mental availability basically is that I recognize the brand, I recognize the logo, I recognize what the brand does.
Right.
I can understand that this brand is equal to this product, is equal to this benefit, and I would probably like to buy it. The second thing is physical availability, which is I am present where my consumers are going and they see me over there.
Right.
Now the thing is, a Nike, for example, doesn't need to tell their story that much because they've already gone up the curve and they're on that straight line curve and, you know, hopefully take another pivot and go even higher. But everybody knows them because we've seen them. Our friends wear them. We understand what they do. We know that their shoes are great. They've proven their brand over and over and over. When you built a brand that is so trustworthy that instantly when everybody is like, oh, I want to buy a gift for my friend, let's go buy Nike sneakers, you know you've made it in the market, right? You don't have to convince people anymore. And if you've seen what they've been doing over the last few years, they haven't been talking about Nike as a brand at all. They've instead been building around the fact that this is our ethos of the brand, and we're doing great brand films and that sort of large thinking. Yeah, their regular social media posts and all are coming, but what we really remember is those brand films that they're creating,
Right.
which is something that the creative department has done really, really well. Now take for example a Mama Earth, a Go Zero, a Go Desi, right? All of these new age brands. Now the thing is that they are still very new.
Correct.
So right now they are at that point where founder branding plus company branding and telling the story is really important, and reiterating those benefits is really important, because they're still in the very early growth stages, right? So right now they've not saturated the market. Because they've not saturated the market, there's always room for another customer to come into their brand, right? So they are still in the brand building phase, and they are building it by telling their story, which is the most obvious way to do it. Like for example, I know Kiran has been doing a lot of podcasts recently from Go Zero, and that is a good thing because he's sharing his story, his background. How did he get into this? Why did he start this? What is special about his product? It's not that he has to go on a podcast and promote Go Zero, but everybody is going to know that, oh, he's a sensible businessman, he's doing something good for us, he's trustworthy. All of those qualities come out when you're doing a podcast
Absolutely.
or anything. And at the same time, when you think about it, like for example, Go Zero and all of these brands are available on Quickcom, they're in your grocery stores, they're in your kirana stores. So they're building physical availability. So now it's not always that when you go to a grocery store, you'll go in and you'll be completely like, oh shit, I'm in an aisle, I don't know which brand to pick.
Correct.
You will always at the back of your mind have a preference towards a brand.
Right.
It could be a Nivea, it could be a Dove, it could be a Mama Earth, it doesn't matter. But every time you think of a category, you will think of a particular brand because they built that mental availability with you.
Right.
And then there are also two separate things that you should know within branding, right? There are some aspirational brands and there are some brands that are meant for everybody, the massy brands.
Right.
So when I think of aspirational brands, I think of like a Rolls Royce, a Cartier,
Right.
a Rolex.
Absolutely.
Those are those luxury brands, aspirational brands, where their entire branding is based around the fact that you can't get it, right? They are
Correct.
just like, I know I have like these many customers and I'm okay with these many customers because these many customers buy 30 times from me, and that's their market.
Right.
However, in the mass market, the biggest problem is that there are too many brands for too many consumers, and you have to build preference and likability, and you have to build that constantly in the consumer's mind that, hey, we're here, we're doing this, we have this new product, it's only for so much, this is going to give you this benefit. And so when you think of how luxury brands brand, they don't even talk about like the brand. They'll just post a
Absolutely.
handbag and say this is for like 30,000 lakhs, and you'll be like, हाँ ठीक है, and then those that want to go buy it will go buy it.
Absolutely.
A younger brand that is still growing, a commodity brand for example, they will have to do a little bit of hard selling, right? Like, we have 0 calories in our product, 0 sugar, 0 this, and keep reiterating. And they're only reiterating it so that we build mental availability with their brand.
Right.
So that the next time we think of buying that particular category, we go and we buy that particular brand's product.
Right. And again, the differentiation between
Yeah. So basically, brand is on the top, right?
Right.
Brand is basically defining who you are, what you do, why you do, who's your consumer, why should they care about you, right? So these 5 things. Under that layer comes marketing, right?
Right.
So brand is all about trust building and about building that feeling and that belief system around your brand, finding your right consumers. Marketing is more around telling your consumers that, hey, we exist, you should buy us, and all of the reiterative messaging, right? Ideally, no brand can survive without brand and marketing. And unfortunately, a lot of people mix them together, right? Advertorials and advertisements, on the other hand, are meant for more on the retention, recall, those kind of things. So advertorials and adverts we normally see in newspapers or on TV, in between our favorite TV shows, or on Jio Hotstar, whatever it is, right? So advertorials are just small clips that are meant to remind you that if you ever want to buy this, you will buy this. Like for example, the mutual fund sahi hai, right? It plays all the time on Sony TV.
Correct.
And that is just a reiteration because they are obviously in that industry, but they also want to remind people and build that recall that when you want to invest in mutual funds, you should do it through us.
Correct.
So it's just more about just building repetition
Right.
and just to help consumers remember them.
Yeah, maybe that's why I personally felt this thing came to my mind. I was traveling to somewhere and I saw a Coca-Cola ad. I was like, who in the whole world doesn't know about Coca-Cola, and yet they invest so much money and time and energy into creating more and more advertisements, more and more creative advertisements. And then somebody, like I was talking to you about Divya only told me that it's very important to keep that retention in everyone's mind, because अगर कोकोला ने करना छोड़ दिया तो probably newer brands will come and people will start forgetting about Coca-Cola. So that's why probably they are investing so much time and money in advertisement to being relevant throughout.
Yeah, their tagline is share a Coke, share happiness.
Open happiness.
And open happiness, right? And the only reason that I think that, you know, a brand like Coca-Cola still needs to be out there is to kind of build, again, that preference, right? You can't build, unfortunately, for a lot of brands, right? Till you actually try it, you eat it, you taste it, you can't really build preference.
Right.
But you can try and build a sort of a vibe around your brand where people feel like they're part of something larger, and therefore they might even try it once.
Right.
The Pepsi Coke war has been going on for years.
Absolutely.
Right? And those that drink Coke will only drink Coke, those that drink Pepsi will only drink Pepsi. And that is by choice. Obviously they taste very different. End of the day, mota they're the same product.
Absolutely.
Right? Like 19-20 ka farak hai. And I might not, I mean, people might watch this and say, oh my God, Coke is so different than Pepsi. But it's really not. Like at the baseline, it is almost the same.
Absolutely.
But when brands invest in kind of building a community, building a vibe around their brand, what they're actually investing in is the kind of emotion rather than selling the product. They're not saying that, oh, you watch this ad, you're going to want to buy it. But every time now that you see a Coke or you see a Pepsi or you see a Thumbs Up, there's a certain emotion that is stuck in your mind about that, about how it will make you feel.
Right.
Like a Mountain Dew is always about terrains and ATVs and people jumping from mountains,
Correct,
right?
adventure.
You automatically associate that. Red Bull, you associate with extreme sports.
Correct.
Right? That adrenaline that is going to come when you do that thing, and Red Bull gives you wings. So these are all just about hinging on an emotion, building that emotion, and making sure that emotion is something that your consumer relates to, so that the next time that they go and they try and look to buy something from the shelf, they look at it and say, I might have a Red Bull today. Right? And in the grand scheme of things, it adds up to a lot. But
Absolutely.
It takes these small steps to keep building it out and keep building that trust factor with the audience.
Right. And you also mentioned about Kiran and Go Zero and their strategy of how going to podcasts and actually telling their stories. So I want to understand how storytelling has become a part of branding. Plus, we also see Ankur Warikoo, Nikhil Kamath, Kunal Shah getting more and more visible in the social media to like tell their stories. So I want to understand from a branding perspective, how important is it, and what exactly is storytelling? So, for example, any influencer, they also does storytelling. They are also telling a story. But how a brand owner or a founder is telling their stories, which is not actually about the product but about themselves, and still getting still creating awareness in the people's mindset about their product. Also, this opens another questions, which is about personal branding. So it's a newer term, right? Before, like five years back, we were not thinking about a lot of people getting into personal brand, building a personal brand for themselves. Now we see people making a personal brand, their product brand, like whatever their business is, they're making a branding for that as well. But apart from that, they are creating a brand for themselves too. So I want to understand, what is the differentiation, what are the difference in the storytelling part of it, how are they doing it, what should be done if a new startup owner or a founder wants to copy paste the same strategy for themselves.
I think initially for every brand, founder-led branding is the way to go, because honestly, when founders start talking about their story, their struggles, their journeys, their misses with how many times you have to iterate on the product, the brand itself becomes very human, and you trust the person behind the brand.
Right.
And new brands, small brands, they need to do that, because at the end of the day there are so many other brands. Like for example, a Go Zero is fighting with like the biggest of the brands, right? And they're lying right next to each other.
Absolutely.
You go on quick commerce, you're fighting with even more brands.
Right.
So some great examples are definitely Kiran from Go Zero. I've been following him a lot. Kunal Shah, the Malkin, Nish Hair.
Nish Hair,
Is doing a
absolutely.
great job. Yushika from Paradise. Like these are all really interesting founders. Dhruv from the Pan Project.
Right.
They're all really good, interesting founders who are just sharing really raw, true insights about their journey, about what went right, what went wrong. And that gives the brand a much more human perspective into how did this product actually come to be.
Right.
So I think founder branding is a really good thing to do, and every founder should do it. Along with founder branding, one of the offset benefits is that you get investor attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which everybody, let's be honest, we're all in it for something, right? So yes, your product will sell, yes, you'll build trust, but then investors also want to invest in people. Again,
Absolutely.
going back to the theory of let's go back to really knowing, understanding, and being people to people and having those close-knit relationships. Investors don't invest in businesses. Investors invest in people they trust. They trust to double their money, trust to give them a good return, and give them a good exit.
Absolutely.
Now, as a founder, if I'm going to sit in my office and not tell the world about how I'm building my product, what went wrong, what went right, some numbers, some metrics, some figures, right? How are they going to know? Like, that is number one. Number two, if I'm a founder and I'm not building my brand, when I go to reach out for investments, people are going to be like, I've never heard of you.
Correct.
And there's nothing more awkward than that, right? You might be able to raise a small angel round from somewhere, a small seed round from somewhere. But if you're looking to raise from like the big guys for a series A, B, C onwards, they are going to want to know you before they invest in you.
Absolutely.
Just because you've gotten 2-3 rounds of investment doesn't say that they should invest in you.
Absolutely.
They will invest in you and they trust you. And that is done through founder branding for sure. On the brand side, when you're telling your brand story, it's your one unique chance to really tell your audience about why is it that you are different than the 10,000 others. Right? That is number one. The second thing that you can do in a brand story is understand their problems, right? So we use a framework called values, attitudes, lifestyles, beliefs, VALB, to understand our consumer. Because when we understand our consumer, what happens is the brand story becomes super relatable, and everything that you say to the consumer becomes almost like you're talking to them like a friend.
Absolutely.
And the minute a brand is able to really deep dive into what is my consumer thinking right now, that is really when the brand, you'll see, has a very good engagement rate, lots of shares, lots of follows, lots of likes, right? So the brand story is sort of the baseline, which should be on your website, obviously, but it should also be shared as much as you can on your social media.
Right.
And this is a very, very big mistake that I've seen a lot of brands do, is that they get so caught up in marketing content. Ye bechna hai, ye naya product launch hai, ye hai, you know, this influencer did this thing, that they forget to share their own damn story.
Right.
Why are you not doing your own brand story a little bit here and there in sprinkles on your Instagram?
Right.
Like if your founder's not the face, like for example in Niche Hair, founder's the face, right? If founder's not the face, how does your brand build that relatability, likability, and all of those things if you're not going to be talking about your brand story?
Correct.
So I think talking about a brand story is really important, because it really brings together, it makes that bridge between the brand and the consumer, and it says that, listen, we're friends, we're bros. We understand each other. We're friends. And I'm here to help you. I know you have a problem, therefore this, therefore that. Right? So I think a very big problem that's happening these days is brands are not talking about it enough. They think it's just something beautiful to be put on a website, but that's not true. It needs to be lived out. You need to be sharing it.
Humanizing.
You need to
a brand.
humanize the brand. You need to
Absolutely.
tell people why you exist. Why did this come about? You know, when we use those big fluffy words of authenticity, transparency,
Right.
being honest, being real, being raw, all of that disappears if you're going to just do marketing content on your social media. You're going to have to start doing some brand content
Right.
so that the people who are looking at your social media page are able to understand who you truly are. Because if I was to go to you with just a product and say that ye product I buy it, you're not going to
Not
buy it
gonna
because
buy
you're
it.
not going to have any preference for it.
Absolutely.
So instead, when you're building brand, share your story, bring the founder on social media, talk about the team, show behind the scenes, talk about your processes, right? Like if you're in line with fair labor laws, manufacturing laws, like whatever it may be. These are things consumers care about.
Right.
And people who care about sustainability, fair wage, all of these things, they will actually pay a higher price for the product compared to another brand who is doing fast fashion.
Absolutely.
And there, I'm not saying this out of nowhere. You can go check it out. Check
100%.
any sustainable brand. They're going to be 1.5 times more expensive.
Absolutely.
Because they really care about the people behind the brand. Fashion brands may offer you a shirt for like say $600, but it's going to be some cheap polyester material, wear it twice, thrice, and it goes back in the landfill.
Absolutely.
But a sustainable brand that is really building on its ethos, and the ethos is everything to them, they are going to charge you more because they've invested that much more time, energy, effort, money in building that process out so that whatever they're saying on their website is not just faff and it's actually something true.
Correct.
So
again, I still have that question. So if let's take me as an example, I'm also an entrepreneur. I want to start my own brand. I've already started, but like that branding part is yet to come. I want to build a brand for myself. I want to build a brand for the product that I'm building. What is that one copy paste strategy that I can follow to not reach Ankur Wariku's level at the moment, like in the very near future, but over the period of time? How can I start it? How can I just come in front of the camera and be like, what story should I tell? Just give me a few pointers on that.
do you want a podcast friendly version or do you want a real raw version?
I want the real and raw version.
The real raw version is business people should focus on growing their business. Let brand people focus on doing what they know best. It's not your forte. Don't try and do it.
Right.
Reach out to someone like me or anybody else who does brand.
Correct.
Because they understand the nuances of a brand.
100%.
Right? It's not just about the width of how broad your brand is and all the things that you have, a beautiful brand deck. It's actually the depth in your brand deck that is going to take you to the next 10 years.
100%.
So I honestly tell people, and I tell this to founders, that don't try and hack it. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. And here's the counter thing as well. A lot of founders say, we're too early for branding. So I ask them, then how are you going to get your first 100 customers? What are they going to buy basis? Why should they trust you? And then they don't have those answers.
But for me, like to answer your question, I personally felt like to get my first 100 customers, it would be a hit and trial. It might take a few more days, but eventually I'll get to that line where I would feel myself comfortable, because see, branding is not an cheap job, right? It's not an affordable job. You have to invest in good people. You have to invest in a experienced company, where in experienced agency where I trust you. So I have to pay that price so that I can get the best out of my brand, right? I cannot go to freelancer or Fiverr and get like, ठीक है, मेरे को एक logo बना के दे दो, मेरे को एक color palette दे दो, मेरे को content लिख कर दे दो, मैं ऐप पे वो चिपका दूंगा और मेरी branding हो जाएगी, right? So for a lot of startups, it's very difficult to invest that much money, because see, again, building a product takes a lot of chunk of the money that we already have, right? So maybe branding की priority उतनी नहीं हो पाती है. The precedence of building a product is a little higher in the initial phases than branding. So that's why I wanted to ask, like, somebody, I understand that expertise comes with a price, and you yourself as an expert, you understand how much price that would be. But at least ऐसा तो नहीं कर सकते ना कि हम लोग ब्रांडिंग पे टच भी ना करें. Like, something is better than nothing. So that's why I wanted to understand a few pointers कि चलो ठीक है, if see also it would be me who would be in front of the camera. Of course, the script would be yours, the concept would be yours, the whole story would be refined by your expert, like from refined from all the filters that you have given. But it would still be me, and I want to understand that I am comfortable doing that. So that's why I wanted to see, चलो ठीक है, क्या मैं इस template में fit बैठ रहा हूँ या नहीं बैठ रहा हूँ, और should I assign somebody else to fit in that template so that I can portray the same story which is better for my business.
Yeah. What you said is a very common feeling amongst a lot of entrepreneurs, for sure. My only thing is that if you try and hack it, right? And a lot of founders think that they can.
Yeah.
A lot of founders do it.
Correct.
That's their choice. My only thing is, see, consumers, and when you're building a brand, right? There are 2 or 3 very important concepts that you need to know. Number 1 is perception.
Right.
How does my consumer perceive my product? Right? Now, with what you are saying, and I've heard this multiple times, you're not the first person saying this. What happens with hits and misses and tries and all of that is that you are going to realize that with all of these little micro experiments that you've done, you have not built a trustable perception about your brand. It's going to take you longer and longer to get your first customer because you're trying different things. Aaj ye message try karte hain. Let's try this logo palette. Let's try this. Let's try that.
Right.
In all of those experiments, what you're actually doing is diluting your own brand. So number 1, perception. Number 2 thing, right, which goes wrong a lot of times, a lot of founders and a lot of people have said this to me, is that you don't understand the attitudes and beliefs of your audience, right? Product is being sold to somebody who believes that they need this product for this particular reason. Yes, they're solving a functional need, but also you have to fill a mental and emotional need, which is why someone buys it, they feel happy. Right? That cannot be done with hits, misses, and trials. Right? Because what happens with that is, again, you're going to mess up your perception. Right? You might say that, oh, we're going to be a very scrappy startup. I'm going to just get a cardboard box, put my kapda in it, and ship it to the consumer. Dekhte hain kya hota hai.
Correct.
But then that same consumer is going to go and tell 10 other people, yeah, I bought from this website and they're really shit. Like, look at the way they send their product. And that's it. One person saying something bad about your brand and your brand is going to topple.
Absolutely.
But in case you want to hack it, I'll tell you a couple of frameworks that we use. One that I shared a little bit earlier was VALB, values, attitudes, lifestyles, beliefs, right? That is one framework that we use to understand consumers. Another really good framework to understand consumers is the empathy map. Not a lot of brand strategists use it. It's actually from a design related background. That's where I learned about it. But I've learned that empathy maps are really one of the best ways to kind of get into the day in the life in your consumer's life. So an empathy map has something like what are they seeing, what are they hearing, where are they getting their information from, what do they like, you know. So it's a very 360-degree view, a day in the life of a consumer type of
Can
thing.
you give an example on this?
So it's a very complicated framework. I would suggest go Google it. But there are many aspects to it, right? And it really helps you dive deep into the day in the life in the consumer. So it'll tell you, for example, you'll have to research what are the podcasts they're listening to, where are they getting their information, do they stay a lot on social media or not? Like, so for your consumer group, if you do an empathy map for a couple of them and then kind of summarize it into one, you'll understand what your consumer really is, what do they do, what do they like, all of that. On the other hand, when it comes to positioning and finding your reasons to believe, your differentiators, there's a Simon Sinek's golden circle, which basically it starts with the why, what, and how. Those are the 3 layers of the circle. Usually people start from the how, what, why, but Simon Sinek says that start from the middle, which is the why, what, and then the how. So that is really the core understanding of what does your brand do, why should your brand exist, all of that. Another framework that we use a lot is also the brand key model. Again, it's a little complicated, but once you just spend a little bit of time understanding it, a brand key is really helpful in understanding the different facets of the brand and how they come together. So there are a lot of different frameworks. Online, for example, if you go and see, for example, one of the best voice and tone guidelines that I've seen is MailChimp's. like it's very, very extensive. It doesn't have to be that extensive. But if you want like a template, like something to look up to, it would definitely be the MailChimp one. So definitely go read that if you're interested to kind of understand what exactly a voice and tone guideline looks like. Now, the thing with a voice and tone guideline, a lot of people do it very superficially. I am a serious brand, I'm a formal brand, I'm an authoritative brand, and just leave it at that. But I think that's really where the gap starts happening between your brand strategy on a document and the brand in creative and the brand living in the online world. So what we do is we add in another layer, which is we say, what is your brand voice? How does it sound on your social media? What does it not sound like? Now write me 2 Instagram captions so that your brand is shown in that. So we
Right.
go to that depth to kind of see that if we say our brand is playful but not sassy, right? So imagine you're a playful brand but you're not sassy. So you're playful, little formal, right? You're not a sassy brand. Then we dive down into that level where we actually write down like a proper guideline for the person who's reading it, for the creative guy, so that they also understand that, hey, we're back with a bang, right? That may be a little too sassy for the brand.
Correct.
But hey, we're back and we're excited to, something is a little
Absolutely.
more tuned down version.
Right.
So voice and tone is something that's almost like a speaker button. You can turn it up, you can turn it down.
Right.
But you need to find your happy medium, which again goes back to what does your audience speak like? What are they saying? What are they talking about?
Right.
Are they Gen Z and cool? Do you want to use lingo and all these cool terminologies, cottage core, Pinterest tree vibe, all of those things, like those bows, and what language is your audience speaking? You have to speak in that language. If they're using these Pinteresty core things to look for outfits, you have to use that same language.
100%.
And that then becomes very friendly, very Gen Z, very cool, very short, very snappy, right? So basis what your audience is speaking like, that is how you will kind of go ahead and create your voice and tone. AI must be mentioned over here. I think AI tools are good at giving direction, but they are not, I mean, I have tried a bunch of times. They're not able to grasp the human emotion and the human element of what your brand is. It's supremely functional and objective, right? And that is not, again, how brands are built.
Absolutely.
So if you go to GPT, use it as a tool to get you started, but then ask it 10 more questions, right? That's something that you'll have to learn how to do. I'm not advocating at all that GPT can replace people like me and agencies that exist. But if you want to do it, it's better to have some sort of guideline. And if I was to go from top to bottom, it would be purpose, vision, mission, values, positioning, unique value proposition, differentiators, reason to believe, tone of voice, there's voice, then there's tone, then there's messaging, then there's messaging in action, and then your visual design and everything.
This whole list that you have just told is actually the answer to everyone who's listening. That these are the things which are considered before creating a brand, and not just आपने logo बनाया, आपने ChatGPT से पूछा I need to do all these things and you just do it. This is the expertise which is offered when you go to a reputed and experienced agency. So now I'll come to another question that I have. So you were telling me about the branding starts from very beginning of building a brand, but we have seen in the startup ecosystem that brands do pivot whenever there's a need. Good startups do pivot and they create something else than what they were initially thinking about, right? So but since branding starts at the very initial level, the story is said in a way that it reaches the product that they were thinking about in the initial phase. But now that they have pivoted, how the story will mend towards the new product, and would it not create a conflict between the original story and the new story? Because of course the original product was different and the current product is different. So how beautifully we can do that so that it doesn't create a conflict in audience's mind कि यार ये brand तो ये करता था, अब इसने ये कैसे करना start कर दिया?
This is an interesting question, because a lot of founders realize too late that they should have built a brand a particular way. And then they realize and they're like, oh shit, now we need to reposition, redo our branding, this, that. So within rebranding as well, right, there are a couple of layers, right? The highest layer is scrap everything, we're starting completely from scratch. Change the name also if you want to, right? So that is the highest layer. That is really when brand has moved so far away from its original idea that the audience is not relating to that right now, and you say scrap everything, we're going to just start from scratch and build a new brand, change the name, change everything, logo, colors, everything.
Correct.
Right? Think like that's very, very rare actually, to be honest. The second type is the mid layer, right? Which is, I'm going to change a few things in order to tweak my audience's perception about my product, because I've understood that my audience perception is different than what I had perceived, right? So in that layer, what you might do is, for example, change the logo, like Jaguar did, for example. Tons of other brands.
Right.
Coca-Cola's changed its logo like 20 times, right? So brands keep evolving and changing their logo and building a new identity around what is really their ethos and ideology at that point in life, right? Now, in that middle layer, right, the biggest problem is that there is already a perception in the market about your brand. You exist. You don't want to shut down business and start a new business. So you have to do something where the audience doesn't feel disconnected.
Right.
Now, when I think about it, the simple way that I explain it to founders is that think that you built a house, right? You can't shake the foundation of the house.
Right.
You can't shake the pillars of the house.
Correct.
You can maybe change the tiling a little bit. Maybe you can paint the walls a little bit. So I explain it like that to founders, saying that, listen, your mission, vision, values, the things that are core to your brand, we can tweak it a little bit, make it a little bit more finesse, little bit more towards your audience, but we can't shake the core essence of that, because that will shake the whole perception of your brand.
Right.
When it comes to repositioning, for example, then over there what we do is we understand where your audience was and where they've moved now over time. And if there is a very big difference, then there are certain steps that need to be taken. If it's a minor difference, फिर वो आसानी से हो जाता. If there is a very big difference, what it tells me is honestly that the founder has not paid attention to their audience. Because any smart founder, what they would have done is mini pivot, mini pivot, mini pivot.
Right.
And they would have slowly adjusted it to maybe not be 100% right, but slowly. But if there is a very big gap between what it is and what it needs to be, then I tell the founder honestly, like, there is some business issue that you have. Let's sort out your business issue first. Do you understand what you are doing first? So it's almost in that middle layer, it almost becomes like therapy session. It's like, what do you really want to do? Are you sure you want to do this? Is this the path you want to take? If this is this, then this happens. Are you okay with that? So literally we play therapist at that point. And over there, then what happens is we basically figure out how do we go from X to Y, what is the changes that need to happen and how it will roll out. More than the change the brand book and create a new brand book, the bigger thing to do there is how are you going to introduce the new brand, right? What are you going to say about the new brand? Are we going to delete all of our Instagram posts from the past and start afresh? Are we going to just put in white lines and say something new is coming?
Right.
How are we going to roll it out? Because the brand book may look very beautiful, but if it's not rolled out well, you'll actually start having disassociation.
Right.
Disassociation means your consumers are going to leave you, which is the worst case scenario.
Absolutely.
Instead, if you do the rollout well, what will happen is you'll find those people being like, oh shit, this is exactly what I was looking for, and I'm going to tell 10 more friends about it.
Absolutely.
That's when you know you've hit the nail on the head with a rebrand. Now, the lowest level of all of this is basically change a couple of things here and there and tell nobody कि color, logo का color yellow से red कर दिया, logo का font change कर दिया, packaging change कर दिया. All of that is very regular. A lot of people keep doing that, and that doesn't need to be made news about or anything. You just do it, you launch it, and that's it, and it's done. So there are 3 layers. So depending on where you want to be, depending on how serious the situation is, depending on how much you've pivoted, depending on when did you start, what was the belief system you were selling, now what are you selling, what is the belief system. Basis a lot of factors, we figure out which layer you're in.
Right.
Once we figure out the layer, then we figure out the plan of action that these are the 10 steps that you need to do. Once that is done, then we help you with a rollout plan, because I think honestly, brands that live on PDFs and on sheets are brands that are not really meant for the consumer, right? If your brand book looks very pretty, but your team is not reading that brand book every single week at least to make sure that what they're posting online, for example, is on brand, then we know for a fact that your brand is disconnected. Because at the end of the day, if Harsh goes and gets a job as a social media manager at company, reads the brand book once and says, "Ha, theek hai, understood, now I'm going to follow it." But over time, you will realize that Harsh has his own tone of voice, his own way of talking,
100%.
and that will slowly start seeping into the brand. Unintentionally, it's not that you're doing it because you want to do it. It'll slowly start seeping in your language, your vocabulary, and then the brand basically becomes you.
Right.
But you are not the brand.
100%.
Which is why that brand book is super important. And I tell all the founders that your creative teams, your marketing teams, anybody who is in touch with the consumer, digitally or physically, needs to have that brand book by the side of their desk.
Right.
It's not just a fancy document that is going to live in your drawer. It has to live there, because otherwise the brand is going to become that person who is representing that brand for that particular instance,
100%.
which is not going to be good. So that's why, I mean, when we figure out what your brand is, the rollout plan is the second most important thing after that.
Okay, so now that we are coming to the end of the podcast, let's do a small exercise. Let's take 10 minutes. We do a small exercise that now we build a brand. Usually, how much time does it take to like complete the whole journey? I have had some conversation with some branding experts in the past, and they have told me that it might take 3 months, it might take 4 months, 6 months, maybe a year, because they want to create a perception in people's mind, that they want to create a story, come out with all the creatives and everything. So, according to you, what is the average timeline, and how we can shrink it in the next 10 minutes and pick a random object? We create a brand in that 10 minutes. So we'll just talk about it.
Yeah, so I would say without visual design, at least keep 3 months. With visual design, add in about a month and a half to 2 months. With packaging, add in at least another month or more if you have more SKUs. Website comes next. Website can take again another 3 to 4 months, depending on how complicated it is. And then your social media. So your social media can take up to, say, a month to kind of get your templates, your content, your social media guide, your content calendars, all of that in place. So month and a half. So if you do the end to end, you're looking at least like 9 months or so.
So it's not a one-time job. It's an ongoing process. You have to keep upgrading yourself and doing stuff again and again and again.
Yeah, like even your brand book, right? Like, remember when we were talking about the fact that are you here and you want to move exactly opposite?
Right.
That means you haven't made those changes at all in your brand book.
Right.
So your brand book itself, you should look at it every financial year. And right now is a good time. It's just about financial year beginning. And I've been talking to a lot of founders that it's now time to really sit and audit your brand. Like, for example, go and look at 50 of your social media posts and like imagine that, you know, this is the brand book that you have in your hand. Go compare it with what is on your social media. Is this aligned? Is this not aligned? Where did we go wrong? What are the guide rails we can put in place? Right? So a brand audit at this point, specifically because it's around the New Year time, very, very good activity to do, because then you won't have to do that drastic shift. Right? That drastic shift is a big jolt to the consumers more than your brand, because at the end of the day, you're putting out a new belief system, a new thought, a new logic, new products, right? So you don't want to scare your consumers. However, if you do this brand audit every year and just go through your brand book and say, oh, let's update the positioning. Now we have clothes for women and men, but our brand book says only for men. Let's update it. So if we keep making these minor changes, your brand itself will evolve. And branding is always going to be an evolutionary process. It's never going to be a 1 cut, 2 cut, 3 cut. You're going to have to make small minor adjustments. And in that small adjustments, you'll see your brand evolving. And that's
also one more point, it just came to my mind. Also, to be relevant, don't you feel the brand should also like, as me, for an audience for any brand, as I am aging, the brand should also age so that it kept themselves relevant for me. Like, for example, when I was a kid, Coca-Cola had one campaign जो उस टाइम पे मेरे को अच्छा लगता था. And as in when I started aging, अभी मेरा मतलब बीच में let's say 5 years back, they were showing me something which was relevant to me at that point of time. Now their campaigns are something like which is relevant to me at 28 in age. जैसे जैसे मैं थोड़ा सा और एज करूँगा उनके campaigns और ज़्यादा relevant होने लगेंगे. Have you ever seen something like that?
So the thing is that with massy products, you're going to have a lot of different audience sets. And one of the core things that I tell all founders when they're building their ads or their marketing campaigns is speak to one person. Speak to one person, create your campaign for that one person. If you're going to try and talk to everybody that is in your audience, you're not going to be relatable to anybody. So you might see that ad and you might like that ad, but you might not know that your father has also seen another ad which appeals to him.
Correct.
Right? So at the same time, if you're a brand, like a massy brand, right? Massy brand like Coca-Cola has to speak to 10 or 20 different audiences, right? So they will keep putting out small signals in the market. However, the smaller brands that are coming up now, the startups, they need to figure out who is that one person, because
Right.
you are not a Coca-Cola, you don't have $1 billion, you don't have access to the kind of money and the resources they have.
Right.
Pick one audience, speak to that one audience, and stick to that one audience. Because till you've penetrated that whole audience, you've not reached your full potential.
Right.
If you're not able to penetrate, then that is a red flag. That means that you're talking to the wrong audience.
Understood.
So you need to try enough times to speak to that audience to check, is my product selling to that audience? Is what I'm saying working with that audience? Are they getting what I'm saying? Like, are we friends? Are we not friends? Right? And if your audience is not responding, reacting, or saying anything, or sharing it, or anything of that sort, that means that your audience segmentation or your understanding of the audience is wrong. So that either means you need to go back and redo your audience understanding, or shift your audience and say that, oh, I thought my product was going to be used by 25-year-olds, but it's actually been used by 40-year-olds. So now let's say that, okay, I know a mass of my products are getting sold to 40-year-olds. Let's pivot a little bit and sell to that category more,
Right.
if that is where your money is.
Right.
Every business decision is driven by money. Where you make more money, that is where your business is going to take you.
Correct.
So they're very directly correlated. But
Now let's get back to the exercise. To pick a product.
pick a product.
Let's just choose this cup.
Okay.
Right. So we are coming up with this product and we only have 10 minutes. How should we start? Where should we start? Should we start before even before the production of the cup has started? What should be the target audience? How do we want to do it? We just have a blank canvas. It's you would paint on that.
Okay. First thing that I would start with is a big brand idea, right? I think that is the overarching theme for the brand. So if it was the mug that we see here right now, I would sell it to people that are very minimalist, very aesthetic, very simple, silent luxury kind of people. Those kind of mindsets, right? Like not flashy, nothing over the top. So my big brand idea would be simple things for the simple ones.
Okay.
Something like that. Something along those lines.
This is
Like
good. Yes.
simple things for the simple ones, right? A brand that is really, truly going to give you everything you need without the frills. So, like, that's basically my big brand idea.
Correct.
Right? Now I will then go and research. I'll do a survey and I will basically go and talk to 20, 30, 40 people who I could think could be my target audience. From there, I'd be able to understand what exactly my target audience is. So now, for example, I'll say that 35 to 45-year-olds are more interested in minimal luxury. They're not about showing off brands. They've realized that, their houses are meant to be something that is truly lived, and the essence is in the people, not in the things that they have. So their mindset aligns with my brand mindset. So now I'll understand their mindset. Like, what are they buying? Where are they buying? How are they buying? What price are they buying?
Right.
Say, for example, this cup, let's say, okay, let's build a story around this cup and say that, the children in Mumbai slums are making these, and, there's a reverse cycle of some sort of CSR going back to them. And each mug is hand painted or handcrafted or whatever, right? So let's build a story around that. Then, for example, I'll say that, okay, my audience is attracted to the fact that we're also giving back and they're getting simple, no fluff luxury at a very affordable cost, right? So I'd start off with my positioning statement for my audience between ages, say, 30 to 35, who are into minimal luxury and not bold statements in their house. These ceramic handmade cups are going to be the perfect solution for all of their friendly gatherings, coffee meets, and casual after dinner conversations.
Huh.
And unlike other mugs that are in the market, this mug is handcrafted by children who really care about bringing, a better lifestyle to their families. The mug is ergonomically designed by engineers from IIT, and the third thing is that it is spill proof, right? So those are your reasons to believe, right? So that is
Correct.
basically the format of what a positioning statement looks like. Then after that, I would go into my unique value prop. So what am I doing differently compared to others? So I will say that these mugs are not just to fill liquids in, but they're meant to bring in happy memories. They're all about the conversations, the ambience, the people that are using it. And, I'm focusing more on the emotion part rather than the functional part of selling. Right? So that could be one of those things. Then after that, I'd go into my voice and tone, right? So as someone who is 30 to 35 or in that age bracket, a little more serious, a little more conversational, no sass, very realistic, not very straightforward, but almost like a very friendly tone is what I would pick for this sort of a brand, so that you relate to that sort of an audience. And
Can you think of a Bollywood character to associate with?
yeah, that was my next thing. So if I had to think of a personality for this, I would probably say someone like...
Shah Rukh Khan in any romantic movie.
No, Shah Rukh Khan is too vibrant for this. We need someone who's very subtle, someone who's very like, I'm here, but Amir Khan.
Oh.
Amir Khan type personality.
हाँ.
Someone who's like, मैं इधर हूँ, मैं chill हूँ,
हाँ.
I'm here, I do one blockbuster a year and I create good memories and that's it. Someone who's very well put together, very quiet, not out there telling people everything about themselves. So someone like that is how I would build this personality of this mug company that we're building. Next, I would think about messaging. So what are those 2-3 things that my audience wants to hear about? First thing I would say is, luxury is in moments, not in things. Something like that. I would say something such as fill your cup with laughter every day, fill your cup with joy, and how to bring in more joy in your life. And the third one would be something around probably around carpe diem, live each day to the fullest, enjoy it, savor each moment, talk to your parents more, do the things that people don't normally do because
Correct.
those are also important.
Correct.
Go and volunteer at an orphanage, you'll feel better about yourself, stuff like that. Because it's linked to the fact that this is made in, the Mumbai slums, and there's a little bit of a emotional and a true story behind it. Then coming to the logo, the colors, the fonts, all of that. If I was to design a logo, I would definitely just use a monogram type of a logo, something very subtle, something not very bold, something probably with a little bit of serif in it, something similar to like a Times New Roman, but like something better because I don't really like Times New Roman. But that sort of a font, like a very, very artsy, but very, very straightforward font. Colors, I would probably just stick to black and white, maybe a little bit of gray. I don't want bold
Minimalist.
branding. Like, that's not the vibe of the brand. So I'd probably stick to something that is just black and white, using negative space well, and using negative space in the logo to symbolize what it is. Font, color, logo, black, all of that. Next thing is when I launch my social media, like I'm going to again build out templates that are very attention seeking, but very, very heavily using the colors as a play of conversation. So like using colors smartly to convey what I want to do in black, white, gray, and shades of gray. And say, so just sort of that's basically how you build it.
Did you see me glowing up? Because I was resonating with so many points over here. And one thing that I have always faced was like ब्रांड को बोलना क्या चाहिए. And now that when I'm thinking about my own brand, I'm like, okay, my brand should be someone like, if I associate my brand with a human, it would something be like this. वो अपनी audience को ये चीजें बोलेगा, and that way the audience will start trusting the brand as a human. It was amazing.
Thank you. I'm glad.
So yeah, it was.
So that's really how we build brands. It all starts with a big brand theory, which is what is my brand? What does it stand for? Why does it exist? Obviously, I've given you a very short version, but some founders have come back with like a one pager on like, what is your big brand idea? Tell me why, tell me how, tell me what, right? And they've come back with like a one pager. And those are really the founders who you know you're going to enjoy working with. So always start with a big brand idea, because that gives you the sense, like it's almost like you're at a shooting range, right? You have to have a target, right? And you see that target, then you shoot the arrow and it hits the target.
Correct.
So
then
that
only
big
you'll
brand
hit the
idea.
bullseye.
Yeah.
Correct. So that was our today's episode. I hope you found value in that. And if you like such content, please do follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Collative podcast, where we talk about different aspects of startups and entrepreneurship journey. Today, we talk about branding and we deep dive into creating a hypothetical brand from where it starts from scratch to make it market ready. In this episode, we have a very special guest with us. She studied in Boston and worked with a lot of renowned brands in India. So without any further ado, let's welcome Vanshikaa Mehta.